first off, I'd like to thank Mike Michalowicz and Jen for presenting today, and thanks for joining us here at the Mars Tech Meetup. We know this has to be a virtual event, and we actually have a few other virtual events scheduled, so we'll get started and just talk about what we've been doing in the last, other than sitting at home working for the last few weeks. So here's your organizers. There's Mark Baskin, Nancy, who's on the call, as well as myself, John Carini, and Mark Annette is also one of the organizers. And Mark will be doing a little presenting in just a bit. So this is a completely pro bono group, right? So nobody gets paid, and there's no money or profit being made whatsoever. We do, however, depend on sponsors, and I'll talk about that in just a second. First, let's just talk about what we are and what we're about. So we're just about nurturing and supporting the entrepreneurial community. So that's our mission, and hopefully we're doing it well. We're up to 2,150 plus members. There were over 100 members that signed up for this particular event, which is fantastic. And our next event is another virtual event, which we'll be announcing immediately after this completes, and that's on May 14th. At 12 noon, so it's only in a couple of weeks. And it's actually a little bit of a follow-up to this event, and we'll be exploring, I guess, in a little more detail some of the concepts that Mike Michalowicz will put forth in just a minute. So we always need sponsors as well as startups to pitch. So if you know of some businesses in the area that would like to connect with us, our 2,150 plus members, please let them know about us. I'm typically at the live events. For those of you who haven't been there, the live events have pizza and refreshments and things, and all that is free. We never charge for our events, or almost never charge for our events, unless we're trying to raise money, and that's all paid for by the sponsors, right? So it'd be great to get some more sponsors if you know of any, and also startups if you know of companies that want to pitch. Please do contact us and let us know what your idea is, and we'd love to have you. A couple of resources. So obviously hopefully you've seen our site, and I know there's a bunch of you that came from the Princeton Tech Meetup site. So if you haven't registered at the Mars Tech Meetup site, please do so. However, now that we're virtual, maybe we're global. We'll have to think about that. And there's also a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, and a Twitter handle that we'd love for you guys to follow and connect with. We typically have our meetings at Fairleigh Dickinson University, which is in Madison, New Jersey, and also we're actually covered by New Jersey Tech Weekly, and they do a fantastic job of covering the entire, call it, tech landscape in New Jersey. And I know Henry, who loves Kenny Loggins, is actually on the call, and I know that he'll be writing about this event. I believe Esther's on the call as well. We're also supported by the New Jersey Technology Council, as well as Tech Launch. So their sites are here. And then here's a bunch of our sponsors. So the Morris County Economic Development Corporation is a big sponsor of the meetup, and we very much appreciate it, as well as Fairleigh Dickinson, who typically provides us the venue, as I mentioned before, the New Jersey Technology Council, and then New Jersey Tech Weekly, who covers us, as I mentioned, and my company is called iEnterprises, which is a CRM company, and some of the other companies that sponsor us are here on this slide. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. Like I said, we're going to move along quickly today, and we have a single pitch from Jen Libby of Promly. So just give me 1 second to switch to that deck. And again, this is our first experience with a virtual event, but here we go. Okay, and now
Thanks, John.
Okay, Jen, go ahead and take it away, and thanks so much for presenting today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, John, and thanks for having us. We are Promly. I'm Jen Libby. I'm the founder of Promly, but also adolescent therapist for about the last 20 years in the Morristown area. Let's see. John, is your mouse, there we go. Is it coming up, the mouse? There we go. What Promly is a safer social networking platform built for teens, actually by teens, with free mental health support built into the app. We are a hybrid version of responsible tech. What that means is that we are a B Corp, and we're also a 501(c)(3) together to really do the right thing for kids. One of the things that we do is we have teens discover their best self, build meaningful connections based on their interests, not over-edited pictures. By building the 24/7 mental health support directly into the app, we make it accessible and relevant for kids. Our goal at Promly is to be 10 preventative steps ahead of teen suicide. Why do we need Promly now? I think that's a pretty obvious question, but one of the sad facts right now is that every day in America, more than 5,000 teens and young adults attempt suicide. I think the CDC statistic is that 5,400 kids between 7th and 12th grade attempt suicide every single day in the United States. Heartbreakingly, I was going to say to you, as a therapist of 20 years in the Morristown area, the first 6 years that I was here, there were 3 teen suicides in the geographic area, generally that I treat. To give you a perspective, I was going to say there were 11 teen suicides since January 2020. That's just from January, February, and March, April. And now today, we're at 12 teen suicides as of today for this area. Gen Z is known to have the highest rate of anxiety and depression of any other generation, yet they're considered the most psychologically aware and empathetic. What that means is that kids actually want to get therapy, they want to get help, they want to talk about these things. In fact, many times I'm hearing from clients that are up at 3 o'clock in the morning at 16 years old because their friend is reaching out having suicidal thoughts. Unfortunately, teens lack access to mental health, and 70% of kids who want help actually can't get it due to cost, accessibility, the availability of therapists that kind of get it, and they're just not there. One thing we know is that teens lack meaningful peer connections. Kids are more disconnected, even though we're in this connected world. Kids are constantly feeling objectified, and as a result of that, they feel empty inside. You can look on TikTok, you'll find a ton of this. What we know too, mass shootings are not uncommon. Over the last 10 years, we've had 180 school shootings. We also know that 50% of teen suicides are impulsive, meaning there was no prior mental health history, but oftentimes we understand that it's fueled by social isolation and rejection. That being said, let's see, flip here. We have Promly. Well, first, connectedness is the base of human happiness. We know that. But Promly really aims to bring 2 worlds together. See, next slide here. One thing we know is that there's a million mental health apps out there, and simply kids don't use them. I know I try to get my clients to use them, but they just simply don't use them. But there are a lot of social networking apps that kids do use. Our goal at Promly is to truly bring 2 worlds together so that kids will actually utilize the resources that are there. Here's Promly. We have a great interactive, unique user experience. Our disco ball spins, it turns. Each of those tiles you can press on, and you'll see that you can get to another tile. Kids can upload some of their most favorite apps to our app. They can also upload content-based interests, things like that. We control the 5 tiles, 20 by 20. Promly for You, the Promly Shop. Obviously, kids like to sell their stuff. 20 by 20 is a therapeutic tool that I use with many of my clients to figure out what their, kind of life goals, interests are. But we use that with Promly to actually inspire kids to kind of do their bucket list items, but to connect to other kids. We have a You're Invited section, which is like an online section for kids to study SATs together, do dance parties together, things like that. Very much gets a lot of props for quarantine. And then we also have a live section, so kids can work with nonprofits together. They could organize a beach cleanup with other kids that have similar interests. They could do music events together, things like that. Next up, we have the Promly for You section, and that really is, our 501(c)(3). I'm going to skip this slide. It's a movie that shows you how the app actually works. But Promly Support is there for you. It's a nonprofit that gives 24/7 access, free access to kids We have supported trained adults who can text with kids without a crisis. It's very similar to the crisis text now model, but kids don't need a crisis to access them. We also have a marketplace model where we have connected with other nonprofits who also provide support to teenagers. So our goal is to put all the support for kids in a place that kids are actually at versus asking them to leave their popular apps to go somewhere else to find support. We also have interesting educational content, things like that, and an easy way for them to access us. Next up, kids know the needs. Of the 10 focus groups that we've done with 10 kids each, 100% of the kids said that they would use the Promly app. They liked the way it looked. They liked the way it worked. What makes us different, we're the only app that puts everything all in one place. And it's pretty fun and awesome. We are at the point of working on our MVP with the hope of getting the MVP back by June, and then working with our focus groups all summer, hopefully with an accelerator program as well, to be able to release sometime in the fall nationally. To be able to do that, however, we need some money. We raised $60,000 actually pretty easily, I would say. In terms of building this app, people seem really on board with what we're doing. I'm pretty sure people want to save lives. But we still need about $1 million, I would say, from quality investors, corporate sponsors, or accelerator programs. So if anybody has any connections in those areas, please, please, please reach out to us. We also always need volunteers. So I would certainly invite anybody on this call to reach out to me. I would love to be able to, figure out a way that you can volunteer. Whatever your strengths are, we can find a way to use them. We're really in it to save lives and to be 10 steps ahead of teen suicide. That's the goal. In summary, it's a big opportunity with Promly. We're a strong team. One of the things I might mention is that we have an amazing team of interns, as well as we have a strong leadership team as well, who's 20 years plus experience both in IT as well as working with teenagers. But I have to give big props to our interns, as they really are the ones that tell us what's amazing about the app and what's not going to work. We have a patentable, innovative app. We already have a patent going. We have traction, and we know what we need. So please think about partnering with us. And finally, we come to this with gratitude. I certainly am, grateful for all the experiences that we've had. Promly's been an amazing experience thus far, but we really want to open it up to whoever wants to get involved. Gratitude turns what we have into enough or more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity, makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. So with gratitude, I thank you, and please reach out to us. Hey, Promly, easy to remember, @gmail.com.
Thank you, Jen. That was great. And Mike's already on, so we're going to move pretty quick. But can I ask one question?
Sure.
So how do you plan to seed your user base?
Meaning?
So something like this I see as it's really useful if there's a lot of people on it. So how are you going to get to critical mass?
Well, it's so funny because in our focus groups, kids will say, so we've had 100 kids in the focus group, maybe even more. And what's interesting is that the feedback has been kids will want to use this. Certainly we use, a lot of the social media models, TikTok, things like that. But really, one of the things that makes Promly different is that kids have been involved in the creation of it. So we do have a widespread group of interns. We also have West Coast interns at the graduate program at San Diego State. We have we have interns in California, Canada, and Chicago area. So we're really trying to, cover all the coasts in various ways. And we have a lot of different models that we're thinking of, but we really do think that the social media marketing is probably the most effective way to get the word out.
Okay, well, that sounds great. I think we're going to have to stop there, but thank you so much for presenting and being so generous with your time. And we're gonna get rolling here and keep it moving along. And
thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for listening. Certainly reach out if you have any questions.
All right, great. So Mark Annette, who's one of the organizers here, will introduce Mike Michalowicz. Now, Mark is actually a big fan of Mike's, and he's actually read all the books, and he's come up with some really, let's call it a really humorous way to introduce Mike. So, Mark, if you're out there, go ahead and take it away.
I am out here. Let me see if I can get the slides to advance.
There you go. You have control. You want to go back?
I can't see the slides.
Okay, we're on the 6 books. First
All right.
slide is, here are Mike's 6 books. So,
yeah, so Mike Michalowicz is one of my favorite authors. He is actually, I was one of the people who was involved in his 4,000 books ordered in the first hour when his book came out this week. He sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies by his 35th birthday. He's been a Wall Street Journal columnist. He's a business makeover specialist for MSNBC. And again, he has published his 6th book now on entrepreneurship. Mike is actually the Rocky of entrepreneurs. And when I read his final book, which Mike's going to be talking about today, I realized that it was so much like the final Rocky movie. And when I went and looked at all of the series of his books, they lined up perfectly with the Rocky movies. So I thought it was just an interesting way.
So the first one, Mark, first one is the original Rocky movie, right? And
yeah.
And the toilet paper entrepreneur is very similar to that, right?
Yes. So is that the slide that it's on? Because my computer's not updating where we are.
Yeah, we're on the. Yeah, it doesn't look like the slides are moving online, are they? Yeah.
So I will just, John, if you can take back control, and I will just talk about the movies as we go through them and the way that they line up with his books, if that's okay?
Yes.
So the first Rocky movie, one of the greatest movies of all times, that's about Rocky fighting for scrapping away. If you read The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, that's the premise of that book is if you just have 3 sheets of toilet paper and you have to write down your business on 3 sheets of toilet paper, how are you going to make it? So it's a perfect lining up in terms of that. The second book, if we go, the second movie, that's where Rocky becomes the champion. He comes back after the loss. And Mike's second book, Surge, is about being the big kahuna, okay, in terms of how can you ride the wave to success. So it takes off where the toilet paper entrepreneur, and it's kind of like a part 2 of that. So I thought that was a perfect alignment. The third book of Mike's, if you haven't read this book, this is my favorite business book. I recommend this to people all the time. It's The Pumpkin Plan. This is about fighting the right battles. So Rocky 3, if you remember that, that's where he takes on Mr. T. But that Mike's book is about finding the right fights. If you remember, Rocky was actually being coasted, and he wasn't. They were giving him fights that he knew he could win. So he wasn't fighting the right fights. And just like in the Pumpkin Plan, you need to find the right customers. You need to find the right fights to do. So in Mike's 4th book, Profit First, again, this is a wonderful book if you haven't read it. It's about fighting for the right things. It's about doing what you make sense, pulling profit first out of your company so that you can join success. And in this book, this is where Rocky beats the Russians. He's fighting for the right things in terms of what he's doing. Mike's 5th book, Clockwork. A lot of the book, at least in my opinion, is about training up a legacy. It's so that you have trained your people so that your business can run on its own. And if you remember this movie, Rocky actually didn't follow Clockwork because he wouldn't have picked that loser Tommy Gunn to train. But Rocky was retired, and he was trying to train up a legacy for himself, which perfectly aligns with Clockwork. And then the final movie in the Rocky series, which brings us to Mike's book, Fix This Next. It's about bringing everything together. in this final movie. Rocky Balboa, if you haven't seen it, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But in Fix This Next, Mike brings pieces of all his other books and combines them into one compass so that you can succeed. And I don't want to give away what Mike will be talking about, but the similarities between Rocky and Mike are quite extensive. They both look badass in a vest. If the picture hasn't shown up yet, and not only that, but Mike's also been known to wear a beret from time to time. So the similarities are quite remarkable. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Michalowicz, the Rocky Balboa of entrepreneurial books.
All right, Mike, I'm passing you the presenter role now.
Got it. I got it, John. Wow, what an awesome introduction. Thank you for that. And John, just so you know, there's a clicking going on in the background. I think it may actually be your thing. So if you could mute yourself, that might fix it. Just as a heads up. So can you see my screen though? You can just put it in the chat. Yeah, that stopped the click. Maybe not. So in the chat, can you see my screen? It should say the business crisis trend. Just post in the chat because I want to see if I can see you all too. Okay, I saw one yes. So yeah, we see it. Good. All right, thanks, Stephanie. And it sounds like you can hear me okay. So what I wanted to share is the process or the experience that businesses go through in crisis, and then I'll explain how some strategies from Fix This Next will serve you. But just by context, I've been a business owner for 25 years now. I've been through, this is now my third recession. But what I find is there's a common trend that we can use to our advantage. So let's just go through this slide. Every recession, I studied back to the Great Depression too, is there is a trigger event, something that undermines a destabilized economy. So in 2001, there was the terrorist attacks and the dot-com bubble. That undermined a destabilized economy. We went into this dip very quickly that impacted business. 2008 was the housing collapse. Of course, 2020 is COVID. What happens is, I don't know if you can see my mouth, I'm circling stage one. What happens is we go into a shock response as business owners. And this is very similar to a personal shock response. If you've ever been in a car accident or something, I hope you've not, but if you have, you can go into shock. And what happens in shock is that our body goes numb because there's such an overwhelm of information. We're so much we're processing that we don't feel certain things, like even broken bones. Some people have gone into shock, don't feel the broken bones for minutes or hours, sometimes days. Well, in what we're experiencing now is called macroeconomic crisis, means there's massive shift going on. All people or many people are affected simultaneously. There is almost this herd mentality of shock. And shock in recessions looks like it lasts somewhere between 4 weeks to 12 weeks. So 1 month to 3 months. And the shock response results in inaction. I suspect you've even seen in your business. I'm in Boonton. I know a lot of folks here are from New Jersey. And sadly, there's been businesses that have now shuttered their doors because they took no action. They were frozen up, shock. Stage two is desperation. Desperation is where our businesses make massive moves out of just to take action, but it's without consideration for what will serve the business. Think about what we saw with the toilet paper run. It was crazy, but people went running for toilet paper. Well, initially the first person that does it, it's kind of funny, but then the second or third person that replicates that behavior, now it's a trend, and then everyone replicates it, and we're out of toilet paper. What happens in crisis is that many crises will present themselves because of desperate acts, and it depletes resources very quickly. So we get many crises. Well, on the business front, we see it right now with these loans. So the loans with PPP and the CARES Act, we see businesses running to get loans and the funds depleted immediately. So there's a desperation to get a loan. But really the consideration here is if our business needs a loan, we have to ask ourselves why. Why are we taking that action to get a loan? Because there's an undermining cause that needs to be resolved. Dropping sales, cost control issues, and we need to resolve that. My goal, and we got to move super fast because I know we only have a half hour for this, is to get us to evaluation and really deliver action in our call. Evaluation is where we consider all options we have in front of us and take actions that are consistent with improving the health of our business. And sadly, some businesses actually get stuck in stagnation here because they do analysis paralysis and they go into these small recurring actions. Deliberate action is where we identify through evaluation what to do and we actually execute upon it. Very specific actions. It's the opposite of shock, and that's why you can see it's almost across it. And that starts the upward curve, and we'll grab the opportunity of the surge or burst stage. Here's what's so fascinating about the surge stage. After every recession, there's a boom, and the businesses that navigate successfully through recession inevitably come out to be the strongest businesses in the new economy, whatever that may be. Warren Buffett has a saying that when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. Well, when the recession goes out, you see who has not been profitable and prepared. But an interesting phenomena is that supply will decrease very quickly. Your competition will go by the wayside, but demand will remain, not active, but will remain in a pent-up stage, meaning not everyone's buying right now, but they're waiting and they may buy in a new form. If we're ready to satisfy their needs, when the market opens up again, those customers buy from the decreased supply. It's the perfect curve to be a seller because higher demand for lower supply, you are the winner. Also, just something I want you to know as I've been studying this and have experience with this, I estimate about 10%, this is not empirical data, this is an estimate, about 10% of customers leave their vendor in economic crisis, not because they can't afford that vendor, but because they have always been waffling about their decision in the first place to be with that vendor. It's a justification to leave. In one of my businesses, I have 450 active customers, and I may lose up to 10%. I've lost some. I may lose up to 10%. And the reason is, the justification is because of the pandemic. But I believe they've always been waffling. Do I really get the benefit I want to derive from Mike? Is he really giving me value? The mistake is to look downstream and try to retain those customers. The opportunity is actually to look upstream because my competition collectively has lost their 10%. Well, my competition collectively has 50,000 prospects of mine, their customers of theirs, and 10% have entered the market now. So there's 5,000 coming down the stream toward me and 45 leaving. I should take action to reserve or hold on to those 45 I'm losing, but the bigger opportunity is the 5,000 coming down the pike. And the way we can capture them is through educational marketing because they are entering the market and they need a new know, like, and trust. Therefore, you have to present yourself, and the best way to do that is through education. I find personally YouTube is an extraordinary platform. It treats SEO so well because it's owned by Google. We're doing a lot more YouTube content to get the name out about us. I worked with a real estate agent locally. Real estate agents have been devastated. What we did is we moved to educational marketing. She interviewed the local mayor, the police chief, fire chief, school principal, all about how the town is responding to the COVID virus. And as a result, she now has these YouTube videos out as buyers are looking at this market and saying, you know what, I want to move into that town one day. Now they see this real estate agent as the authority. That's marketing through education. All right, next slide. Hopefully you see on the screen now, it says survival trap. And what this simply points to is why businesses stay stuck in a crisis, and maybe you can relate to this. A represents point A, where we are now in business. And for many of us, it's crisis or challenge. All those arrows represent different directions we can take to escape crisis. And if you want with your hand, cover the letter B and where it says the right direction, just cover that with your hand. And you'll notice, just looking at the A, almost looks like the sun now, is that you can take any action in any direction to escape crisis. And that's how many businesses work, is that they are simply considering what is happening in the now and need to escape it. But they move on to the next A. We go from crisis to crisis. In fact, in the chat, maybe how many business owners in here can relate to that? You can simply say yes, that you go in, you put out fires, and the next day you go in and you're putting out fires, and the day after that. I'd love to see in the chat just so I can see how many people relate to that. So I see Arthur, thank you for being the first to respond. So just put a yes if you can relate to it. Okay, see other folks too. And I see an amen, the best. The B represents a vital need. It's what our business needs from us right now. The thing is, we don't know what our vital need is necessarily. We simply know that we're in crisis. So what the objective is first identify B, what's the vital need for our business, and then move in that direction. So I see a lot of yeses and yups. So everyone that says yes, yup, and amen, you are representative of the typical and normal entrepreneur. So thank you for saying that, because that is typical. Well, there is a way through this, and this is from my research. This is part of Fix This Next, my book, that I wanted to share with you specifically. The business hierarchy of needs. What I did over the last 5 years, it took me 5 years to write this book, is I extrapolated through hundreds of businesses, actually ultimately ended up being thousands of businesses in all different types of industries, what the common DNA was. And this is what it revealed. This is very similar to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, but translate to business. Now, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he argues foundationally for all humanity, we have what's called physiological needs. Air, we need to breathe air. Water, we need to drink it. Food, we need to eat it. Only once those are satisfied do we then address higher level needs like safety and protection. And above that is belonging to a community, a tribe, just like this group right here, is we belong to something. Highest level of needs is self-actualization. Well, the difference between the business hierarchy of needs and the Maslowian hierarchy of needs, the substantial difference, is we are not wired into our business, but we are wired into ourselves. Meaning, if you're walking down a dark alley and you get a sense that harm is going to be put upon you, please turn around, because your senses are triggering that. Harm will be put upon you. It is important to leave quickly. That's our senses triggering that. But in our business, we are not wired into our business, biologically or neurologically. Yet many business owners trust their gut. And that's the danger, because our gut instinct doesn't know the truth of the business. It's only through empirical data. So this business hierarchy of needs shows the 5 levels of needs we have, and we just ask ourselves questions, and we need to back it with simple empirical data. The base level here that says sales, this is the creation of cash for an organization. It's the equivalent of oxygen. If your business is to sustain, of course you need sales. That's how you're breathing. But you can't breathe your way to safety. If someone had a gun to your head, you can't breathe that gun away. You need to defend yourself or plead for your life, but you need to take action. So sales and even more sales does not make a healthy, protected business. In fact, you're simply building a bigger and bigger foundation and putting your business at more risk, because sales at some point translates to stress. Maybe you can relate to this. The more sales you have, the more obligation your business has. The more obligation your business has, the more it must deliver on. And if you're a small business owner, the more work you have to do. So as your business grows in sales, your top line sales, for many of us, so does the workload on us. So the balance to that, and I can see Arthur, you guys, I got that right. Thanks, Arthur. Viewer 25, thank you. So the response to that is profit. Profit brings about stability for an organization. And even in this crazy environment, we can bring about profitability. I'm going to try to share some tips if time allots. Above that is order. Order is the creation of efficiency for an organization. The ultimate acid test is if I can get the owner, myself, you from your own business out for 4 consecutive weeks without any active input in the business, and the business sustains or grows, you likely have achieved an organization that is no longer dependent on the owner. That's the ultimate acid test. Impact is the level of transformation. This is where our clients are not buying transactions or experiencing transactions with us alone. Those transactions are impacting their lives. The example I like to use is Harley Davidson. If you buy a Harley Davidson, you can buy a motorcycle anywhere. But if you buy a Harley Davidson, you now belong to the family, the tribe. You're a weekend warrior. It means something greater than the bike itself. And that's the idea of impact, that there's a greater meaning beyond the transaction. The highest level of businesses is legacy, and this is the creation of business permanence. In my research, this was actually one of the most fascinating things I found. This is when business owners say, oh my gosh, I've never been a business owner. I've always been a business steward, meaning that their responsibility was to give life to an organization, but it's about your organization and its life. It's not about our involvement in the organization. There's this disconnect almost, which in a very powerful, soulful way empowers the business to run without them. This is the 5 levels of the hierarchy. And what I want you to realize here is that you have a responsibility to make sure you're getting before you give. My mother used to say, Mike, you have to give to get. And I hate to call bullshit on my mom, but it's actually the reverse, because we have to get sales and profit in order to be able to have great impact and legacy. And in this environment right now, I see businesses trying to jump to the impact level to serve their communities. And there's already at least 2 that I've counted in our town of Boonton here alone that have shuttered their doors. They gave to the community until they exhausted themselves and they're out of business permanently. It is the ultimate shame. They gave for 2 weeks, but they won't be able to give into perpetuity. We, as business owners, have an obligation to sell profitably in this environment and in a way that's giving. You have to be fair to your customers and you have to be fair to yourself. How we navigate this system is you simply ask yourself, where is the imminent need in my business right now? And you can ask 2 questions. Do I have any? Do I have adequate? Do I have any sales? If not, you have a sales problem. Do you have adequate sales to support any profit? If yes, then we look at profit. Do we have any profit? No, we have a profit problem. Actually, many businesses in this environment maybe have drooping sales, but they actually have a profit problem, cross control and stuff like that. So we navigate this. Always start at the base and work your way up. That's the business hierarchy of needs. Again, all these things are at recessionresponse.com if you want to just download these. Okay, exactly. Put the oxygen mask on first. Here's a tool I prepared for this group. You can go to Recession Response to get it. I just want to share a couple real quick cash flow strategies that you can use. There is what's called First Asker Advantage. That is fading away right now. But if you have any significant recurring expenses, the first people to ask for some kind of leniency get it. 6 weeks ago, I'm in a building, 5 stories. We have 1 floor for our offices. And we went to the landlords 6 weeks ago and said, we're seeking some leniency because of the COVID situation. Now, we are fiscally strong, so we did not ask for forgiveness of rent or anything like that. We simply asked for leniency in the term. We had a 5-year term. We said we'd like to consolidate that down to 6 months, the 2-month out. And the reason is because we don't know what the future holds. Landlord said, no problem, you got it. The second people that went in after us, that was a long meeting, and the third people didn't even get the meeting. So the first asker gets an advantage. If you have a need for leniency, you must ask immediately. The time is running out. Second technique in here that I wanted to share is right here. It's about setting up the GL accounts. What I encourage every business owner to do is go into your accounting system or have your bookkeeper do it and set up a GL account, general ledger account, that says COVID-19. The reason you want to set this account up is that you want to track any expenses you incur related directly to the COVID response that your business is taking. Do you have to buy cleaning supplies? Did you have to set up remote workers? Do you have to attend conferences and get training like we're doing now on COVID, that time you allocated? Track those as expenses, because if the government requires you to extrapolate those numbers and to get loan forgiveness, you've got to be able to do it. And most business owners won't be prepared. But if you track as a GL account starting today, you can demonstrate that. Another thing is if you ever want to get a future loan and you have to show your business financials, banks are going to ask for it, and you have to be able to extrapolate the expenses occurred to COVID. If you ever want to sell your business, you have to do a recast, and you've got to be able to pull this out. One last technique I want to share from here, there's about 25 for you, is be prepared for the triple punch. I have it right down here, the tax estimates. So in the U.S., the April 15th estimates have been postponed until July 15th. The June 15th estimates have been delayed to July 15th. The September 15th ones are still due. For the first time in history, 3 tax estimates are going to be due within 60 days. The pending tax cash outflow is going to be devastating for small business. It actually terrifies me because many small businesses right now are not reserving their taxes. They said, oh, I got forgiveness for April. I can spend that money on running my business. When July 15th comes, it's going to be 2 punches to the face, and then 60 days later, 1 right to the gut in September. Please reserve your taxes. Whatever you would pay on April 15th, hide that money away from yourself so you can pay those installments. It's going to be devastating for businesses that are not prepared. And there's an article right here I wrote that you can get at Recession Response for the 60-day triple tax punch. Borrower-lender matrix. Something important for us all to know is the sense of obligation versus time. You can see that the borrower has a heightened sense of obligation at the beginning, and over time it decreases, and the lender's sense of obligation increases. What's important to know here is if you offer terms or installments to your clients, you are a lender. And so if John gave me $100 and I'm the borrower, and say, hey, John, thanks for $100, I have a heightened sense of obligation in the beginning. Hey, John, thanks for hooking me up. But he has a low sense of obligation. Don't worry about it. Just pay you back in a couple of days. No problem. Over time, me, the borrower, said, whatever, a week passes by, I got other things to worry about. John doesn't need the money. And my sense of obligation decreases while his, back to me, increases. Why did Mike pay me? Is he trying to steal them from me? What's going on? The danger is right here at the crossover point. If you are giving terms to your clients, they pass that crossover, collections become near impossible. And as more time progresses, it becomes harder. We need to keep our clients on this side of the obligation. Here's how you do it. Simply call your customers that owe you money and say, hey, there's new circumstances upon us. I want to ask you, what can you reasonably afford on a weekly basis? And the key variable here is weekly, because weekly now causes a weekly trigger to remind them to pay you because they're paying installments. I had a client owed me $25,000. I told him this strategy because they were a year past due, couldn't do collections or anything. I was going to write off his bad debt. I simply asked them, what can they afford on a weekly basis? Their first response, by the way, was, I don't know. I said, could you afford a penny? They said, of course. And we talked about it. It became $200 a week. They started paying me $200 a week. Then what happened is after about 6 weeks of this, I'd call them every Friday, thanking them for the money. They sent me a check for $3,000. I said, why? They said, well, we had a larger tranche come in. We owe you 25. We want to pay you faster. And the reason they felt that way is because of heightened obligation. I want to share one more technique and then ask you guys something, and then one more technique after this. This technique is called the one step back. It's a way to reinvent your offerings. It's critical for the profit and sales model within Fix This Next. Here it says final offering. What we can do is look at the final product offering you've had historically and rewind it step by step by step to create new offerings. I'll give you an example of a restaurant I'm working with. Historically, a restaurant puts food on a table. That's the final offering for the people to enjoy at the restaurant. Obviously, can't do that right now. So we ask ourselves from the final offering, what happens one step back from that? Well, the waiter carries food to the table. Okay, carry out or take out is a new product offering, but we also then want to amplify it. One business here teamed up with a food truck. A food truck is delivering food to homes, and the restaurant honestly isn't a restaurant anymore. They're a cooking center. They're turning out so many more meals. Then we ask, what happens one step back? You can keep rewinding. Well, one step back from carrying food to the table, we prepare food, our 5 most popular dishes. Why not sell the recipes of our 5 most popular dishes? Or why not have the cook in our kitchen film video how to prepare it? Or why not really amplify this and sell a cooking class over 5 weeks each Monday night? We'll teach you how to prepare one of our favorite menu items, and you can join us in for a couple hours, entertain your family, learn how to cook, and connect with neighbors because we'll have them there too. In fact, I'm rolling this out with a restaurant right now, and they're making more profit per transaction hands down than they did as a traditional restaurant. Happens one step back, and you keep rewinding. And one step back, of course, for a restaurant is raw inventory, meats, vegetables, condiments. Why not sell those things? So what can you do? You can become a blue apron for your town. Look at your business and rewind step by step by step. Now, there's one thing I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to share another tip with you, is I have my brand new book that just launched called Fix This Next. And I'll show it to you on the screen here. It's on Amazon. What I'd like to do, and I'll put the link in the chat, I don't know if it'll work, but I would like to invite you to pick up a copy. And here's why I'm asking. I have 2 reasons. One is so many people are asking me how to navigate crisis. I actually wrote Fix This Next, the book on how to navigate crisis. I never expected this. So these tips I'm sharing with you are all derived from Fix This Next. It is honestly the greatest way I can be of service to you at the most affordable price. It's like $25. So if you're willing to purchase it now, I promise you it'll be of great service to you. But also I have a selfish reason. I just launched this book 2 days ago. So if we buy the books right now, it honestly serves me because it gets surge purchasing on Amazon, which means Amazon starts marketing it to other entrepreneurs. So if you're willing to buy it now, just one copy is the best way for other entrepreneurs to discover the book. And I'd be absolutely flattered and honored. So if you do that, please just post in the chat. And I just want to say thank you personally to you because that is a big deal to me. So thank you. So that's Fix This Next. And this is what we're talking about here. Let me now continue on and share some more strategies why you consider that. Viewer 83, I wish I knew your name. Thank you for picking up a copy. That's a big deal to me. Thank you. The product path is the methodology that we use internally and with our clients to roll this out, to roll out products. What I want to focus on is the beta. And the beta is a simple technique for selling new offerings before you produce it. We call it the can you sell the tell. Stephanie, thank you for getting a copy. Here's how it works. Can you sell the tell? Historically, we develop a product, we try to bring it to full fruition, and then we try to sell it, and we don't know if people want to buy it, particularly in a market like this where needs are shifting so quickly. So here's the new way to approach it. If you have a concept, sell the tell, meaning go to your prospect list and say, hey, I have a new offering that I'm considering doing. Here's what we did as an example. We surveyed our readership and discovered that the biggest challenge readers have right now is confidence. Business owners are struggling with confidence. So we made a beta confidence course. I wish I knew people's names here. Viewer 76, thank you so much for getting a copy. Mark, thanks for the kind words. It will serve you, I promise you. And you've just served me, so thank you. The beta was we reached out to our list and said, people want confidence. We're going to develop a confidence course, but it's not developed yet. Our intention is to sell it for, let's say, $1,000 in the future. But if you're willing to be a beta, we're going to discount it significantly down to $250. And if you buy it at this extremely discounted price as a beta user, we're going to actually improve the product as we move along to cater to your needs. And we just want to acknowledge there's going to be bumps and bruises. So the consumers are inoculated and prepared for bumps and bruises, and they help develop the program. Well, now I validate through people's wallets, meaning they gave me money, that I have something of significance. If no one's willing to join the beta, then we have that product that won't work. Thank you, viewer 77, for getting the Audible. You rock. That's a big deal to me. Thank you. Then what we did with the beta users is we rolled out the product. We did this about 4 weeks ago is when we started. We finished the beta program a week ago, and now we have the full-fledged product. The beauty is now as we roll it out to market, we have pent-up demand because people didn't join the beta, are interested in it, and we have the beta users as testimonials. We have 10 testimonials of people who are already doing it. We validate the validity, that's kind of double entendre, but we validate the product by asking beta users to pay for it. That's the key. That's called sell the tell. So I want to encourage you to do it. And one last slide before I wrap things up. And thank you for everyone that bought the book. That is seriously a big deal to me, and I promise it'll serve you. So thank you, Cedric. This is called the Pareto overlap. And it's the final thought I want to leave you with is there's 4 scenarios of our customers that are critical. Scenario 1 is great clients, your top 20% clients represent usually 80% or more of your revenue, who are buying your top offering, 20%, that's usually 80% of your profitability, is the heart of your organization. You must be very clear who your best clients are buying your best things and do everything to protect them. In this environment, if we lose them, that will jeopardize our business and could put us on a run out. So we need to serve these clients. But there's another scenario here at the bottom. Bad clients, meaning they're never happy. They can even be threatening. They cause you to redo work. They threaten that they're going to go on Yelp and slam you or sue or something. That are buying unprofitable items. This is equivalent to poison, and businesses cannot afford to swallow poison right now, not in this market, so you must jettison those clients. 2 more scenarios, great clients buying weak offerings. So clients love you, but they're not profitable. This is an education on the offer. Talk to them about other offerings you have. As long as it serves them, encourage them to buy that. Move them up the chain. And the 4th scenario is bad clients buying very profitable things. Well, that is a trap because you're making money off them, but they're not great clients. So you need to educate them on the relationship, how they must behave for you to continue serving them. I just want to give you one final thought here before we wrap up. Arthur, thanks for getting a copy. Thanks for everyone that's got a copy of Fix This Next. It truly is my best work. It will serve you, I promise you, and you are serving me. The world proverbially just punched us in the face, as I said, and we were bleeding from the nose and we got a black eye, and yet we got to stand up and step forward as small business. The global economy is dependent upon us. Dennis, thank you so much. The global economy is dependent upon us. This is crazy, but you have to sell harder than ever before now. I'm not saying take advantage of people. This is not a situation where we're opportunistic, which means take advantage of someone's disadvantage. Instead, this is an opportunity to serve, which means we have to sell. If you just give yourself away, you can't sustain. If you give yourself away, you do it for free, people see no value in you because it's valueless. It costs nothing. And if you don't sell, customers will buy from someone else. And sadly, in this market, there are some unscrupulous providers out there that are selling very aggressively. And the buyer is going to buy. The question is who they're going to buy from. And if you don't step up and sell, they're going to buy from the unscrupulous providers. I know you guys are good providers. I've met you before, and you're here to learn. Clearly, you care about your business and your clients. Therefore, you have an obligation to sell. It's the only way to be of service. It's the only way to sustain. I'm wishing everyone tremendous success in this crisis because we are depended upon by the global economy to succeed. And I strongly suspect you will. That's my presentation. Thanks, John.
Thanks so much, Mike. Do you have time for a few questions if there are any?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll see if there's any. One thing I'll throw out there is on the PPP loan, I'm very active with some of the banks here, and I found that that the small banks are much better at getting the loans.
Yes, community banks.
Big banks just.
Yep.
So if you know somebody at a community bank and you want a PPP loan, and just I'm sure you guys have all read about it, but basically you get 2.5 months payroll forgiven in theory if you get a PPP loan. Look for the small banks, and you better go to like tomorrow because the second tranche is. And then other thing, I really liked your slide about the just about how to protect yourself in this kind of economy. But something over the years is our company has always grown, especially on the tail end of a recession. And it was a lot like what you said. Do you think that's because the competition has a hangover, or why do you think that is that small businesses do well, especially towards the end of a recession?
Yeah, so I put the slide back up. I don't know if my screen's still being shared.
Oops.
But what happens is there is a rapid decline in supply while a pent-up degree of demand. So the reason small business starts booming so quickly after a recession is because it's the old supply-demand curve. Low supply, high demand, and customers move very quickly. Customers become more tolerant of their business choices too, because it's hard to get needs. Like I bet you've probably bought toilet paper brands that you have never bought before, right? Well, that's the same thing with like when buyers are ready to buy, there's such a slow supply at the end of a recession that they buy any brand, and that's an opportunity for us. Now, they won't keep buying that brand. You have to be able to retain that demand, but we have to be available, and we can grab onto this and go big. I've been studying businesses that boom out of these economies. Airbnb was a little startup in 2008. It boomed out of this economy, and Uber and others like that. Hey, viewer 29 says, can you talk about your offer if you purchase 20 or more bucks? Yes, I do have an offer. I'll pull it up if you're interested. It just details it there because I don't want to spend time on that. I'll put the link up. So if you want details on the multi-book offer, because some people want coaching with me and stuff. Some people want coaching with me, so I'll put it here.
That's great. Yeah, one thing interesting about this particular situation is, at least for my tech company, we haven't seen a decrease in sales. We've actually seen an uptick. And I don't know if that's because, people are at home, and they have time to investigate and purchase products. It could be that we offer, value-oriented products, or maybe like they're just so on technology in this world we live in for the last few weeks that they're looking at all these tech products. So our sales are actually up almost 100%. It's crazy. And I didn't think it was real. Yeah, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just a blip, but I'm starting to be convinced that it is real and that people are just paying more attention to technology. Especially we have this one product that's like a Gmail integration piece for Salesforce, and we're getting like many sales a day on that, and it's really interesting. So
you may have intentionally, or maybe unintentionally, but it sounds like intentionally anticipated a new need, and so I truly believe we are in the greatest entrepreneurial petri dish of all time. Now the problem is it's scary because we were always making money one way, but now it's shifted. So the question is, what's the shift? And we got to identify it. But if we identify it, there is a lot of opportunity to grab onto. We're not going to return to the old normal. It's going to be a new normal. So well done, John. Good positioning. Now,
I don't.
You hold that tiger by its tail,
Yeah, I think I just fell into it. I would have, if I really knew, I would have taken all my money out of the stock market a few months ago, right? All right. If there's, what we'll do, by the way, is we'll send out that link for the Fix This Next Multi after the meeting, so that everybody gets it. And also, it'll cover like the 2,000 plus people that actually belong to the group. So that's really good. Do you have any closing remarks there, Mike, before we wrap up?
Just a reminder of our obligation to stand up and step forward in this market. And it's hard. Our customers are looking for leaders because so many people are frightened. And a leader doesn't mean you know the way forward, but you know that you can be of service, that you don't have to solve everything, but you can solve something. That's what a leader is in this environment. So it's, my own employees ask me, how do you feel? I'm like, I'm scared. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm confident that we need to work aggressively in serving our clients and selling to our clients. And so far, so good. And I think we all need that same responsibility. You don't have to be perfect here, but you do have to march forward.
All right, thanks so much. I really loved the presentation. It was like much more technical maybe than your previous talks, and I found it incredibly valuable. Thanks so much.
I love hearing that, John. Thank you. Wishing everyone well.
Thanks so much for being so generous with your time, and good luck with the new book.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye, Mike. All right, so we're just going to wrap up real quick here. So there is another meeting scheduled for May 14th. And it's actually Maslow Meets the Business Model Canvas, which is actually brought to you by the state. It's a co-working space, and Mark Annette will actually be presenting on that topic. And he is, it's very interesting because it relates a lot to Mike's last book and how that helps businesses grow and thrive. So definitely join us for that virtual event. And then we're looking at doing COVID at the next couple events we see on May 14th, and we will announce that event immediately after this. And then we'll, as soon as we know the date for the COVID event and we have everybody lined up, we'll let you know about that as well. So thanks so much for joining us, and it's great to have a little bit of normalcy in these times. We hope to see you in a couple of weeks at the next event. Please stay safe, everyone. Thanks.